Welcome to the DFS Army 2022-2023 EPL. That's English Premier League for all you new people to soccer. Fantasy season preview. My name is Sniper. We are going to go through the whole every team by team, all 20 EPL teams that help me do that. The other coaches at DFS Army for soccer. FanDuel extraordinaire down there. I gotta bring up the names. Trey, how you doing, man? Been doing this a while together now.
Yeah, I don't know, feels like forever. How you doing, Sniper?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm ready for the season to start. We got a showdown tomorrow, and then classic slates on Saturday. And just so everybody be very clear, this is a season preview. Watch this, learn a little bit about all the teams because we're going to need them the first few slates, and then we'll kind of help you get moving from there. The other DraftKings focused coach along with me is JNappy. How you doing, man?
How's it going?
I am ready to break down these slates. Now, clearly, I guess for a little bit of bias throughout the episode, I am primarily a City fan. And I don't say it to be a front runner, and mostly I'm a Kevin De Bruyne fan, and that's before everyone realized he was the best player in the world. I've been on this train for years. These guys can back me up on that. So that's where my allegiance lies. Clearly, Trey J down there is a Tottenham Hotspur fan. Just kidding.
Clearly.
Busting his balls. Big Arsenal fan. And you know what? Gun to my head, I don't know who your team is, Jay. I can't. Oh, Chelsea. That's right. I did know that. So that's why you love Christian Pulisic so much. I get it now. I'm on board. If you are watching this free on YouTube or wherever else, we have all the insight for this, every DraftKings FanDuel slate showdown classic throughout the whole season available. Cheat sheets available to DFS Army members. Make sure you go to DFS Army, become a VIP, get a package that includes soccer, which I think is just the all sport package. Find us in Discord, ask us questions. We're more than happy to get everybody on board with soccer. There is, I still believe, a big edge in soccer because a lot of the big players just don't play it. So if you understand what you're doing, there's still, I think the edge is, I think it's like 5 years behind. It can be tough if you don't know what you're doing because there aren't a ton of contests, but the edge is there for educated players. Would you guys kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. So, that being said, we're going to go team by team and bring up the view here, and you guys can you don't have to look at our faces the whole episode. Oh, by the way, if you are in chat, which right now there's 2 people in there, so I know one is you, Ashley, and one is some other, kind of sprung this live on people, so I think a lot of people are going to be watching this recorded. But for those of you who are live, type in any questions. We'll kind of answer them as we're going. We're going to go team by team, just general previews, things to look out for. One person's going to take a team, and the other 2 we will kind of pepper in some info during or at the end. I don't want this to be an hour and a half episode. We all need to go to bed. Trey and I have kids who hopefully are sleeping.
Hopefully.
So that being said, I guess we should probably let Trey take Arsenal. Take it away, buddy.
All right. So the future champions of the Premier League.
Wow.
No. I do think we have a good shot at Champions League. One way or another, though. And I think they're kind of built themselves that way this year. They know that it's a tough road at the top of the league. So it's, a lot of good teams and a lot of teams that are getting better. So they've gotten real deep to try to at least take a shot at Europa. So at least, got a shot one way or the other. So, but as far as DFS goes, everyone knows about unless you've, living under a rock, you've heard about Gabrielle J Zeus coming in to take the number 9 role. And he's been scoring all the goals in preseason, coming over he was the first player in the Man City raid. So he's going to be chalk anytime, Arsenal is the big team on the slate. But there's plenty of creativity that's been added to the team, and that just leads to goals all around. So, Martinelli is it's kind of like the value play in this front. I mean, everyone knows about Saka and what he's done for Arsenal, for England, and just the super reliable motor that he's had because he hasn't had any backup on that right side all season. So, but Martinelli is kind of that I don't want to say unknown, but he's kind of like that sleeper play because while it looks like he plays on the left, he kind of gets central a lot. So you're going to see a lot of overlap and switching between Jesus and Martinelli. And Martinelli is just going to be super cheap. Spoiler alert, I really love Martinelli in the showdown tomorrow as captain play in GPP. But outside of that, you got Odegaard, who's going to be backed up by Vieira. You got Zinchenko, who came in to take over for Tierney. And as you can see by the projected lineups for the first game, that Tierney and the normal right back, Tomiyasu, are hurt, and they're not going to play. So Zinchenko, who was brought in to be in the midfield, is going to take over his left back role that he had at City. But I think this 4-3-3 is going to look a little different with the way that they're set up right here. So this is almost going to play like a 3-back system because White's not going to get that far forward. So it's almost going to be like a 3-back system and a little bit like a 3-4-3 with Zinchenko still hanging out in the midfield. So that's almost going to it's going to bring Odegaard in, Partey and Xhaka. I mean, it could either go like a 3-4-3 or a 4-2-3 with a double pivot there with Partey and Xhaka playing a little bit deeper. But and that's kind of like your basis. Subs, we should probably mention for those who don't know, this season, Premier League has voted to go back to the 5-sub system, 5-sub method instead of the 3-sub. So a lot of these guys are going to be pulled. So it's going to, don't freak out the first week when you're like, why is my guy not scoring anymore after 60 minutes? And, that's why. So I think your top 3 subs on here, Jesus, because they only have 2 strikers. So Jesus is going to get pulled a little bit. Normally, Emil Smith-Rowe is going to come in for Gabrielle Martinelli, but ESR is hurt and ruled out already. So I think Gabrielle Martinelli is nailed tomorrow to go 90. You might see a weird play where like Pepe gets in for Saka a little bit, but outside of that, I think
I like Pepe. He has a DFS floor. A lot of these guys kind of don't. This Arsenal, by the way, in terms of scoring, they're not a floor-based team. They're pretty direct. There's not a lot of crosses here. Zinchenko and Saka are probably your floor plays, and Jesus is kind of your big GPP pop-off. I personally am I know he's been scoring in preseason, Jesus, but I want to – he's going to be so chalk at the start of the season. Arsenal strikers just – they don't seem to score a ton. So and Jesus, I mean, he's good, but he always disappointed at City. Like, of all the guys City was going to let go, that's to me who you let go. Like, I'd rather play, I'd rather have Raheem Sterling and Jack Grealish. And even though they're false, there's something about Jesus. I know he's the more typical number 9, but I don't know. This team for DFS, I don't know how DFS productive they're going to be.
Yeah, they've always been pretty frustrating to me in DFS because goals can come from anywhere, especially last year. I mean, all these guys, Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli. I love Emil Smith-Rowe. He was starting a lot more last season. I think he might this year. But, yeah, any of those guys can score goals. Now bringing in Jesus, he obviously can as well. Saka is really the only floor play that I've ever felt confident in when he was starting because he's on a majority of sets and takes free kicks too. So I think that'll probably continue. But, yeah, from a DFS perspective, they can be kind of frustrating. I think they're easier to play on FanDuel where the floor doesn't matter as much and you're trying to predict goal scores.
Yep. Yeah. Trey, you want to handle this one question before we move on here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Zinchenko's going to be up and down that left side. So, yeah, it'll be 4-3-3 out of possession. I think it's going to play more like a 3-4-3 as opposed to a 4-2-3-1. Even though that's, it's kind of fluid in how it kind of works offensively. But yeah, I think it'll be a 4-3-3 because, they're they're going to need to play defensive, and that's kind of what they've set themselves up to do. I mean, everything looks like, oh yeah, we're bringing in creativity, but it's also been to cement their defense, and I think that's why you're seeing White, Saliba, and Gabrielle starting as basically three center backs, as opposed to Suarez as a right back. I think when Suarez could come in for either Saliba or White, and at that point, I think that's going to be more like a 4-2-3-1. But if you see those three center backs out there, yeah, it'll be more like a 3-4-3.
We got all the technical breakdown on this one because he is such a big fan. Let's move on. I will begrudgingly.
I'll be quicker next time.
You got. I say begrudgingly because I know what we're doing alphabetical and I know who's next. So I will begrudgingly give Nappy Aston Villa. You're up.
So Villa is a really interesting team. They're probably going to finish middle of the table. From a DFS perspective, they're just kind of hard for me to predict. Everyone wanted Lucas Dean last year to be a floor guy. He was always an expensive fullback. He typically was on sets, and he just never did it. So he was much better when he was with Everton previously the season before, and just had a lot better floor. So with these guys, there's not really a lot of players to get excited about from a DFS perspective. I think Bailey could be cheap to start off, and he's kind of an interesting player to me. He's a really electric attacker. Watkins, you can always play in a GPP. He's really goal dependent, but he can have a brace or score multiple goals in any game. And Coutinho kind of has a little bit of a floor as well. So Martinez is typically a goalie that I like to play in DFS because he gets tons of saves. This defense is just a funnel, easy saves to Martinez. If they can keep a clean sheet on top of that, he can smash. And so I especially like playing him when they're underdogs or slight underdogs or maybe away, because he can still just rack up saves. Typically, the pricing for goalies is based almost exclusively on who is favored and who is an underdog. So when he's an underdog, they can lose and he can still score double-digit fantasy points because he just racks up so many easy saves. So not a ton to get excited about from a DFS perspective here for me, other than Coutinho, if he kind of takes over the every set role, and then Martinez.
It's all about sets here because it's really Digne, Coutinho, and I think you missed John McGinn because he would pop off some games where he would take 12 crosses and you're like, I don't know what's going on. So Villa's kind of a team to monitor. McGinn is the X factor. I mean, he's a lot of times at least on DK, that 5K range, and he won some GPPs last year. I know he did. Yeah,
McGinn and Louise can sometimes switch in on sets, and so they're kind of a nightmare to predict. I think Coutinho is the best set piece taker on the team, and he's the most dynamic, but he's also the most dynamic attacker of those three. McGinn and Douglas Luiz are not really dynamic attackers, and so you kind of want Coutinho around the goal instead of taking the set. So it's an interesting problem for them, and it just kind of makes it a mess for DFS.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's one of those we'll monitor throughout the first couple weeks. I do totally agree on Emiliano Martinez. He's a really solid goalie.
I love Bailey week one, by the way. He's really in form right now. And Bournemouth, I'll save Bournemouth for when we get to Bournemouth, but
don't even. I get to do it in a second.
Yeah, I mean,
I get to do that in a second.
Excellent.
Ollie Watkins too, week one against Bournemouth. He's a guy where, in the right matchup, you can play him. And he's so streaky that he could be under-owned if he's not in good form, but he can score 2 goals in any match, and especially against somebody like Bournemouth.
Last thing, a guy I like actually from both sites, because I think he's sneaky good in the air, is Ezri Konsa. The one here is under Konsa and Goyo. He seems to find he's got a good nose for goal. A center back, scores well on FanDuel. He's kind of that sleeper play I'll throw in. I'm going to throw him in against Bournemouth. He's the center back who I think will end up with 3 or 4 goals this year.
So pair him with whoever you think is taking sets then.
Yeah, unfortunately. All right. Bournemouth. The reason we were alluding to this many times, just what Trey was just saying, and me begrudgingly giving JNappy Villa. Bournemouth, so if you don't know, the Premier League, we talked about Arsenal top. It changes slightly every year. 4 or 5 teams qualify for Champions League, which is best of best European tournament. In case you are not familiar, the bottom 3 teams are relegated. They go to the second tier of English football, and the 3 from the lowest are brought up, or the 3 who win the 3 who win that tier 2. It's called the Championship. Are brought up to play in the Premier League. So there's 3 teams that are new every year. Bournemouth, back in the Premier League, the same cast of characters generally around those spots. So it's not like we've never seen Bournemouth before. They put out odds for, who's going to be relegated this year, who's going to finish one of those bottom 3 spots. Legitimately the highest number I've ever seen. Minus 250 to be relegated. That is, I've never seen that before. I was looking it up with JNappy right before we started. I expected to see like minus 125, and that still would be pretty egregious. No, it's minus 250. It's bananas. So here's the DFS breakdown.
What's funny about them too is they've been up like 2 times in the last few years. They keep going up and down, up and down. So they've been in the Premier League. Of the 3 teams, Fulham has 2, but they would rely on they're that heavily favored because they actually know what it is to play in the Premier League, right? Unlike Forest, who has not been in a long time.
They just got nothing. And Ryan,
a lot of these same players too.
Yeah.
The problem is no Ryan Fraser. That's your big difference. He can carry your team. Or Callum Wilson. So here's the breakdown on Bournemouth. Don't play them. If you're playing on FanDuel, there are 3 center backs when they're in 3-4-3. Hill, Bepham, Kelly. They're in the back line here. You can play them on FanDuel because FanDuel scores block shots, interceptions. I mean, DK has interception, but really it's the block shots, and clearances that will rack you up some points on FanDuel. If they're playing a team who's all like another team who's ass, they get matched up with Nottingham Forest, for example. You can play Solanke. He is their best goal scorer, best player by a lot. And I think maybe their floor play in those situations will be Ryan Christie, but that's kind of a guess, and more to see as his team actually shakes out. That's really all there is to that. Travers is always going to be the least expensive goalie on the slate. He sucks, though. His team's not good. His team's, when they win a game, it's going to be the news.
Yeah, general all over a void, unfortunately.
So I think they're actually going to be in a 4-back system. Their manager was saying that they are in a worse spot now defensively than they were when they got promoted. So they want to go 5-back, but they've got a lot of injuries and whatnot. So I think they're going to be in a 4-back system, which kind of hurts them.
They should just play 4 center backs.
They probably
Honestly,
should just play 4 center
backs. I'd play 4-2-3-1 with 6 center backs.
Yeah, just park the bus. Just try not to
pray.
get goals.
Every time Watkins touches the ball, somebody clothesline him. Let's move on here. I'll get a fun team next, I hope. Trey, you got Brentford, who was in the Premier League last year, first year, managed to stay up, had some decent performances, actually, and probably the standouts, at least from last year, are Tony and Imwobo. How do you think they're going to fare this year?
I actually have them on a short list for relegation. If we kind of remember back a little bit to last year, their season was in free fall until Christian Eriksen was, given the go ahead to get out there.
I wish he was still on this team, by the way. I wish he was still on this team.
It was so fun. It'd make him a lot more fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, if they had Eriksen, I think that they could finish top half of the league. But without Eriksen, I think that there's a good chance they go down. What you see here for their team is pretty much what they have. Aside from a couple of injuries, like they just don't have much in the way of depth, which is good because they don't have to play any other leagues besides Premier League. But yeah, you're looking at Mbumo, Tony. Wissa's gonna, he's gonna pop up with a few goals here and there. He's actually really good. On the left side, they're going to play a 4-3-3 against some of the weaker competition when they go to the tougher on paper teams. Like your top 6 teams, they'll end up going 5 back. So you're probably going to see. Actually, they're missing Canos, so they're gonna have to figure out who they have for wing backs between Hickey, Henry, and Canos.
Didn't Janelle pop off a few times in DK? He magically had a floor at the end of last year.
He was
taking
big scorer.
Yeah, and Jensen was the main set piece taker, and I think he was injured toward the end of the season last year. But he's the other floor guy to watch, both of those outside midfielders. Yeah, there's not a lot to like here, and just looking at the team, I'm kind of with you, Trey J. I think they could get relegated as well, because you're right. Christian Eriksen was a huge help for them when they really needed it toward the end of the season. They're a fun story because they're they're like a Moneyball team. They've been promoted probably 3 or 4 times in the last 5 years or something like that. It's pretty crazy. And they do it in a really analytical way. So they're kind of a fun team to root for, but I just don't know if they have the players this year. They didn't really do much. Like you said, this is kind of the same team that they had last season, minus a really, really big star in Christian Eriksen. So yeah,
I think they have enough. I think Tony is going to be enough for them, and Tony and Immobile, the 2 guys I mentioned up front. I think they're going to stay. I think they're going to be fighting it, and if one of these lesser teams surprises us, we'll go through a few that I think are worse off than Brentford. Especially, I want Brentford to get Pinnock back. I think Pinnock is a really important defensive piece for them, who's not listed.
I rostered him quite a bit last year, actually. He was like
and Sergio Canos. I forgot about Canos, who because he's not listed here because he's suspended right now. He is one of their more interesting DraftKings plays, I think.
Yeah, he's a good floor play because he's a defender too on DraftKings, and so he's typically a little more expensive, but he has a floor and gets forward and can nab an assist or 2. So yeah, he's an interesting play. Yeah,
he gets in the box. I believe he scored their first goal last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
because he was like the 3rd man in the box after Tony and Mbeumo.
Yeah, and last year Tony scored 12 goals and had 5 assists. He needs to repeat that if they want to stay up. He might even need to do a little better. That seems pretty ambitious.
All right, Nappy. Figure out the enigma that is Brighton and Hove Albion, because there's some names here, but literally last year at different points, March, Gross, McAllister, Trossard, all at one point would have a share or a monopoly of set pieces, and it was the most frustrating thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't end up playing Brighton very much on DraftKings. Because like you said, when their guys are healthy, they split sets between those 4 guys. There was a time where McAllister was the only one healthy for like a stretch of 3 or 4 games, and he was a DraftKings machine, a cross machine. But if that's not the case, really the best thing that they have going for their team is their defense. But that doesn't really translate to DraftKings points, unfortunately. They don't really have fullback. Because March and Trossard kind of play those winger positions, they don't have guys that are defense on DraftKings, defenders on DraftKings that can kind of get forward and score points. And so there's just not really a lot to like for me until the set pieces kind of shake out a little bit. Sanchez is actually a pretty good goalie, and he keeps a decent amount of clean sheets because their defense is really solid.
Yes.
But unlike Martinez, he does not get many saves. So you'll see a lot of games for him where Brighton will win 2-1 and he'll have no saves and end up barely positive in his points. So I don't end up playing him a lot for that reason. He's kind of a boom bust GPP play because if they do keep a clean sheet, he can score pretty well, but he's not safe at all. He does not get many saves. And so I kind of feel like I've gotten some boring teams so far, but there's not really a lot to love from a draft.
I had Bournemouth. I don't want to talk about it. I had Bournemouth. I will say, you can see anybody attack, when, matchup dependent, when teams are playing Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest and Fulham, attack the forward. Danny Welbeck, especially to me, he really sticks out as a guy. When Brighton is playing a bottom tier team, I'm going to go out of my way to play Danny Welbeck. Where you can't always do that, obviously, but I like Danny Welbeck against bad teams. I think that's where he's going to really eat this year.
He's typically cheaper too. Like Mape has been their most expensive forward previously, so you can usually get Welbeck at a pretty nice price. So I like that.
One guy I'm watching this year for them is Moises Caicedo. With Basuma gone, I think he's gonna have, because he towards the end of the season he had a couple of times where he showed up, and if he's gonna get some much better run this year with Basuma gone, then I mean the Brighton midfield is gonna be a mess. It's gonna be like 8 guys going in for 5 spots. So it's just gonna be like a giant rotation. But if Moises Caicedo can really kind of take on that role, I think he could be a little bit of what McAllister was last year.
Yeah,
but again, you have no idea what these guys' roles are going to be. I mean,
and like you mentioned earlier, Trey J, the 5 subs is, that might have been you, Sniper. The 5 subs is really important, especially for attackers, because that's typically who's going to get subbed out more, right? And so for teams that have deep midfields, you're going to see a lot of subs. And so with a midfield like this, it's actually kind of deep, and their roles are so ambiguous. It's tough to trust any of them from a DFS perspective.
All right, let's see what my next team is. Oh, look, it's Chelsea. Yay! I was in my head going, I don't think there's anybody before that. Okay, Chelsea. This is one of the teams. My problem here is that I hate Thomas Tuchel, like with a red hot passion. I don't like Tuchel. I didn't like him at PSG. You know what really soured me on Tuchel? I know Nappy. I'm sorry, it's your team. Is what happened with PSG and Shakhtar. I think it was Shakhtar. No, it wasn't Shakhtar. It was the team from Istanbul, actually.
Oh,
the Champions League.
Right.
Yeah. No. Was it Galatasaray where they stopped the game because was it Galatasaray? You guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, because it was loud.
No. One of the referees referred to. You dropped an N-bomb towards one of the players.
Oh,
yeah. And then they stopped playing. And Thomas Tuchel was defending it. It was really bad. I don't know how he escaped that. We're just all ignoring it. I was like, this. And then Tuchel's at Chelsea. It was weird. Anyway, sorry.
You know what's surprising to me about this is that he has Alonso starting on the left instead of Ben Chilwell. Chilwell's healthy. To me, that's his spot.
They're gonna go back and forth.
Yeah,
they're gonna go.
But whoever's in that spot is gonna be great for DFS.
All right, so look, Chelsea is a team to target for sure. They plenty of DFS goodness in here. The fullbacks, these defenders are usually priced up. They're usually really good. Marcos Alonso, Reece James. Reece James will always be my favorite. Even when Ben Chilwell is over here, I like Reece James more. I think he's more electric. I just like his play style more. Chilwell will get more sets though, so he's probably it's why it's kind of the catch-22. You can't go wrong with either of them. And the breakdown, when any of these guys, any of the 3 of them are playing, is toss a coin. They're all good. You don't know if you like to pick on a certain side. You can look at the defense. They're all great plays, and you're kind of splitting hairs with who you're picking. Mason Mount became DraftKings Gold last year when he was even with splitting some sets with Alonso or Chilwell or even Reece James. He's just in the middle of everything since they added the shots assisted category. Mount's just always around the ball. When Mount isn't in, Hakeem Ziyech is always a solid play. Is Ziyech still there? I didn't see any news. I haven't followed up my Chelsea news. So another solid play there. Azpilicueta always gets tricky because he's priced weird because he can be a fullback. He's really the team's 4th fullback. So it's worth kind of noticing, but I'm never too interested in him. And then Kai Havertz was the number 9. To me, Kai Havertz is the most interesting what's going to happen this year. Because a lot of times, Chelsea, and you can still say Chelsea doesn't have a typical number 9. They had Romelu Lukaku, and that didn't pan out so great.
Again,
and you don't get a number 9. You got Raheem Sterling. He's coming from Man City. He's not a traditional number 9. He's an outside type player. Havertz played that spot and he played it okay. If they bring in Ziyech, I bet you they go 3-4-3, and instead of this 3-4-2-1. I bet they would play flat, and Havertz could be on the outside, and Sterling and Ziyech on the outside. I just feel that at some point this season, or maybe just they're going to list it this way. I feel like Sterling is going to end up on the wings. He's so fast. How do you not have him out there? It just makes sense to me.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
not going to play a true number 9, even if he is up top in the middle. He'll be tracking back and being more of a false 9, kind of like Havertz played last year. Yeah.
It's just strange. It takes away some of the goal. Like, it makes me like both Havertz and Sterling less because I feel like they occupy the same role on this team. Now, if Sterling's going to start playing wide, it gives him a little bit more of a floor, and I can kind of see what happens. But I think for me, the DFS interest in this team is all about the avalanche of fullbacks and Mason Mount, and we have to see who's going to take penalties this year. Is it going to be Sterling for sure, or is Jorginho keeps popping up with penalties? So
I
it's something
really
to
hope
watch.
it's Sterling.
So who's gonna take
After his
penalties?
last penalty, I don't know.
I still do. Jorginho. Ugh.
Yeah, and then every once in a while, whenever N'Golo Kante's under 3,500, I stick him in my GPP pool. I just do.
He scored a goal in the preseason game last week, actually.
And he gets like 5 or 6 floor points. He's around. He does a little bit. He does a tackle here, a couple shots assisted, fire something on goal. Like, he just does a little bit of everything. Draws a couple fouls, like just a little bit of everything. And Mendy, you could always play Mendy in goal, but Chelsea's going to be favored a lot. Like,
Yeah,
my advice, like, there's probably going to be better spots. Like, if you're playing the big favorite, unless you're the only big favorite on the slate, then sure. Otherwise, I'm probably going to want to play the Liverpool keeper, the Man City keeper, are probably just a little bit safer in cash games. And in GPPs, I like to mix in that range because you never know who's going to go off.
Yeah, and
I'll mix all of them.
He's similar to Sanchez. This defense does not give up a lot of shots, right? So if he doesn't get a clean sheet, he's not going to score well. So I found myself not really playing that much either. Yeah, I agree, Sniper. I think the biggest DFS targets here are Mount and the fullbacks, whoever those are. I'm not going to play Azpilicueta if he's playing in the back because he's just going to be more expensive. And then just it's not as bad as Man City, but take your pick of whoever the attackers are and see if you can get lucky and get the goal scorer. But they're going to be rotating a lot. I mean, Pulisic and Ziyech are going to be in there a lot. Mount is really the only player that I think is going to be a mainstay. So
the problem is, I think if Mount gets if they get up 1-0, 2-0, I think they'll pull out Mount for Ziyech pretty quick and let him rest. The 5 subs is gonna be interesting to see how this shakes out.
Yeah.
Trey J is next, and his team is Crystal Palace.
Awesome. All right.
You love these London teams.
Just don't play him.
Don't play him at all.
What about tomorrow night, though? Home to really.
No, I mean, Zaha's
really
good.
easy.
Zaha's good. I mean, that's kind of obvious. The only other Edward. He's got some.
Watch the pricing on Edward, because Edward, I mentioned showdown tomorrow. He's 5,800, and his goal scoring odds are like Saka's plus 250, and Edward is plus 275, and they're priced 4,400 apart.
Jeez. So
I don't know what it's going to translate to in classic slates, but it's just I want to notice what his pricing is going to be.
He's typically cheaper because he's not an every week starter for them. But if he's starting, he's a good play because he can score.
Yeah, he's definitely their best number 9. They're going to rotate probably like Edward and Philippe Mateta is going to probably come in for him, and then
he's ass. I hate Mateta. He's bad.
But for some reason they just don't want to play Benteke anymore.
Yeah.
So I mean, you kind of have to go with what you got.
This team really isn't. I'm looking more. I think you're right. This team's not very exciting for DFS at all.
Eze is an exciting player, but you have to get the right price and the right slate. Just because typically, I mean, you're going to have better options. I mean, Palace, when they play at home, they're going to play a really good defensive game. They're going to look to try to win the game 1-0. Maybe the other team wins 1-0, or maybe they can get 1-1. But they play a lot of unders at home. It's when they go on the road that their matches kind of open up a little bit. But I mean, again, you're probably going to have other options for the price that you get. So it's really not a lot to like it. Even on FanDuel, like the center backs, they're cheap because they don't really do a whole lot. I mean, if you need someone to get you 10 points, you can take your pick between Gueye and Anderson. But like that's the ceiling pretty much. And you're going to pay $9 or $10 for it. So there's better value out there.
Yeah, and on
Let's-
DraftKings, their fullbacks are always kind of cheap, and they kind of trick
They
you
always
into thinking
bust. They always
maybe they
bust.
could be a good play, but then they never do anything. Yeah, Palace just doesn't attack from the outside like that. They typically try to build through the middle, and so a stand that I'm going to make this year is to not get tempted into playing Crystal Palace fullbacks. I'm just not going to do it.
I'd rather play Ducore, who will randomly pop up.
Yeah,
I'm gonna. Oh, that's Cheek Decore. Yeah, new addition this year. He's taken over for MacArthur, who's hurt. Elise is hurt. Those are two of like their build up extraordinaires. So now they just have Ezzy in the build up pretty much.
And Gaeta, I think, is going to be a backup this year. I think Butland's going to supplant him when he gets healthy. I think, but their keeper situation, they're a mess. They are. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if they get in trouble this year. We're talking about potential teams who could really fall out of favor and fight relegation. They don't look good at all.
Well, further too, actually, this team hasn't gotten a lot of time. They've just had pretty much the last week to play together too, in terms of preseason, because they split their squad in terms of preseason, partially because they wanted to go one. I forget if it was Singapore or Thailand, where they wanted to go, and a lot of them they didn't meet the entry requirements. So they had to split the squad. So like they didn't all get back together until this past week. So I mean, I think the early season is going to be tough for them.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. This is JNappy's next team, Everton.
So
I wish Trey would have got this.
I think Everton is a dark horse to get relegated this year, which would kind of be a shocker. But like they lost good players in Charlison. They didn't replace them with anybody. Like Pickford
is starting at number 9. What are you talking about?
Yeah, Dele Alli, gosh. Dele Alli was good like 5 years ago. Pickford is a really, really, really good keeper. He's their, I mean, he's the England number 1. They're playing, who will be playing the World Cup this winter, which will be a really interesting thing to see for the season, how that kind of plays out. Yeah, DCL's out. Ash just said that DCL is out, which
I was only out 6 weeks.
It keeps getting longer, and Townsend's out. Andros Townsend's out too, who's their big signing last year.
We're definitely missing somebody in here. We're definitely missing somebody in here.
Who?
We're missing Where's my boy? I'm surprised Chad is going crazy right now, yelling at me. This is where
Oh yeah,
crying McStupid face ended up.
Burnley, yeah.
Dwight McNeil.
That's their big signing. So this squad looks to me like a promoted squad. Like if you just look at who the players are, the level of talent. I don't like Frank Lampard as a manager, even though he's a Chelsea guy. Love him as a player. He is. I started watching Chelsea and following and became a fan when him and John Terry and Didier Drogba were running the show. But just as a manager, he's just not it. So
yeah, that's what just happened to me, Mr. Whites.
Yeah. I'm not going to be playing a lot of Everton guys. They're kind of a mess from a set piece perspective as well. Damari Gray and Gordon will kind of mix in some.
Gordon's my preferred, by the way. If you're going to play anybody, I play Gordon.
I just not that interested. Maybe Mylenko if his price is right and he's categorized as a defender, but
who cares?
He should
really
he should be cheap, but
all right. Let's see who I got. I think I get another. I'm pretty sure I get another relegated team or recently promoted team. Yep. God, yeah. My luck is just the best. Look, this team's not. This looks like a promoted team.
Yeah, but do you know how many goals Mitro scored last season?
A butt ton, but he did it. Yeah. So
44.
Yeah. So Mitrovic is your guy here. That's most of what to say. Bobby Cordova-Reid, Cordova-Reid is a decent player. I want to see what his price is going to be. My thing with Fulham, and I don't have a good sense of with them, is how they're going to be priced. Because they haven't been
pretty cheap.
Like if Reid is cheap, to me he's kind of that spark plug player that I think is interesting up at the Premier League, and I think his price will start kind of going up. You know who
I'm excited to see in the Premier League? the American.
Which one?
Jedi.
Jedi.
Well,
I was just
not Tim
Oh.
Reeves, Jedi Robinson.
yeah. I was just about to say Jedi.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I'm trying to read one thing. I didn't see this Harry Wilson news, so I'm trying to catch up on it real quick.
Oh yeah, he knee injury bad. He's gonna be out a while.
I wonder if he's gonna go back.
He kind of hurts Mitro. Like they were a pretty good pairing last year, so that's gonna hurt a bit. But they did bring in Kevin and Babu. I think you guys are gonna like him on DK.
Yep. There's this, and what's interesting here is Joe Bryan when Fulham was in the Premier League the last time, he was DraftKings Gold. He played on the outside. He tons of crosses. He was the guy. He was so. Does Mbabu take up that mantle? We'll see what happens when Bryan gets healthy. I'm not totally sure, but you can probably, the plays here are probably Mitrovic, one fullback, figure out who it is, and I went on the limb on Cordova Reid cheap. And that's another promoted team, and I'm gonna go cry until it's my turn again because
Mitro eats in the championship. 44 goals in a season is absolutely insane. Like that's a nuts number. But
I can't wait till Virgil van Dijk just pummels him into the ground.
He's not going to do it
in
the Premier League. They were in the Premier League 2 seasons ago, and I'm not sure he scored 10 goals. So, yeah, stay away.
All right, Trey, you get
Leeds, baby.
You get Leeds and all these Americans.
Yeah.
Woo.
So
I'm actually really excited for Leeds this year.
I think
that we get exciting Leeds again.
I think
Bamford's
so
healthy.
Bamford is huge for them. Yeah.
So huge. Dallas is hurt to start the year, which is not good. Because he's great in the build-up and he can play anywhere.
For DFS, I like that Dallas is hurt. I never know where that fucker's going to play. He's going to be fullback. He's going to be center mid. Is he going to be a forward? I don't know. The formation says this. Oh, he's center back now because somebody got hurt. That's good. Like he's great for him. He's very valuable to his team. But for DFS, I don't know what was going on.
Yeah. So two big signings for them. 2 Americans, Brendan Aronson and Tyler Adams. With Bamford coming back, and they needed big signings like that because losing Rafinha and losing Calvin Phillips are going to be big for them. Calvin Phillips is not really a DFS play, but Rafinha has been our Leeds DFS play for a long time. He's their main set piece taker. He was on pins. He's an electric playmaker, and he's not there anymore. They sold him this summer. So I want Aronson to be that. He's actually been taking sets for them in the preseason, and he's one of my favorite American U.S. men's national team players. And so I'm really excited to see him in DFS this year playing for Leeds. Adams isn't really going to do much. He's a really, really solid player, great pivot in the middle, but he's not going to do much for DFS. But all of their attacking players are really exciting. And 2 seasons ago, when Leeds was first promoted, they scored tons of goals. Now, they gave up a lot of goals too, but they scored tons of goals. And so with Bamford back, with Harrison in really good form, adding a guy like Brendan Aronson, who's electric and a playmaker and a really good set piece taker, I think they can score a lot. Rodrigo's interesting. He just hadn't really panned out in the Premier League. But they're going to be a fun DFS team if we can figure out what their fullbacks are going to do and if they can be valuable at all like they have been in the past. Ailing and Dallas have been fullbacks that are really dynamic and good scorers for DraftKings. But all of their attackers are really exciting for me. I'm basically never going to play a defender or a goalkeeper for Leeds hoping for a clean sheet because it's just not going to happen very often. But they can outscore a lot of teams.
Yeah, you totally just jacked Trey J's team. So I'm going to give Trey J's the next one.
Oh, whoops.
Did you guys see Aronson's assist to Bamford in the last game? Oh, absolutely ridiculous. Aronson got the ball in his own defensive right outside the box and turned on a dime, and he ran up to the midfield and threaded a ball with the outside of his foot about 30 yards through 2 defenders and hit Bamford in stride. Just absolutely ridiculous.
Love it.
The defender should have done better, but
he's American, so he's the best player ever. Anyway, moving on. Trey, you're going to get instead Leicester.
Can we reverse this? I want to go back and take Leeds. Leicester.
Well, you can go quick. It's a pretty quick breakdown.
Pretty much, yeah. So Leicester's in upheaval right now. You got Arsenal who want to take Tielemans away, and then you've got Newcastle who wants Maddison, but then you've got Leicester who does not want. Oh, sorry, and you have Chelsea who wants Fofana, but Leicester doesn't want to give up. Only wants to give up one of the three players in this window. So I don't know who's going to, because Arsenal has the lead. They've kind of rejected Chelsea and Newcastle for now. So Arsenal has the lead on Tielemans, but Arsenal's dragging their feet. So
if Newcastle gets Maddison,
that's where I was going.
They might make European football. I think it's that big of a deal. And they're already like getting interesting.
Yeah, they're already
on Maddison. They're already getting Maddison. It's going to get. Oh God, Ash is going to be unbearable.
Well, so that's the flip side of that is if they lose Maddison, I think Leicester could really. I think that's a huge enough loss that Leicester could be fighting relegation a little bit. I don't think they'll get relegated, but to see them drop down to like 15th, just because I think his service to Vardy is important, and Vardy's not a volume shooter, so I mean he takes like 2, maybe 3 shots a game, scores a goal. But a lot of their ability comes from Tielemans and Maddison. So, I mean, if I'm Leicester, I'd rather lose Tielemans than Maddison. So that's, I mean, a little. The fullbacks should be pretty good. But again, I mean, I think it's a wait and see with Leicester. GPP only.
It's Maddison and Vardy. That's really it.
I think Harvey Barnes is kind of sneaky too if he's cheap enough. And Dewsbury Hall was taking some sets as well toward the end of last season, even with Maddison playing. So he's an interesting one to watch as well if he can be cheap and be splitting sets. And I don't like Vardy at all. He's just old and kind of past it. But they have 2 other strikers that are so much more interesting to me, and Iheanacho and Patson Daka. I really hope that
Patson Daka is better. I don't like Iheanacho. I think Iheanacho
left this year actually.
He's gone. That was last year. I never really liked Iheanacho. I'm reading real quick here. I didn't see that, but there's so much going on sometimes.
Oh, if Maddison does leave, Mark Albrighton.
Albrighton's the guy.
Albrighton. Yep. He's going to be like 4,000 on DK, and he's just going to take like 10 crosses. That's going to be amazing.
I very well might hit the lock button if Albrighton is 4K without Maddison. Unless they're playing a top 5 team, I'm just going to hit the lock button, and I don't do that. All right, is this my next team? Okay, can't possibly be Nottingham. I think I get a good one here.
Still in the L's.
Yeah. Okay, Liverpool. Always play them. There, done. Now look,
play everybody.
Liverpool and City are going to go toe to toe for the title again. In all seriousness, I'll try to do this breakdown relatively quick because we know how good they are. Alisson will be in line for a clean sheet pretty much every game. Van Dijk is a GPP goal option, but he's always usually a little bit too expensive. So it's kind of as you need him, you could pepper him in. Alexander-Arnold, Robertson. Robertson got better and better last year, closer and closer to being. They're always 1A, 1B on the slate, even when Cancelo or Chilwell. I would go so far, even when Reece James and Marcus Alonso are on the slate. These 2 guys are better. They're going to put up tons of points. Liverpool attacks from the outside. It's just cross after cross. It's nonstop. They are the best players on the slate. I would probably, and the problem is Alexander-Arnold. They started to price him up. There was a time when DK would cap out defender salaries at like 7,000 or 6,500, and they started getting where they wasn't one slate last year. He was priced in the mid-8s.
I was going to say, didn't he hit 9,000 at one point?
He got into the low 9s. He was like 92.
And he was still 65% owned. Yeah. Like that's like so that gives you an idea how good they are. Look at the middle 3 guys when you're looking at Liverpool. Liverpool is the back 2 and the front 3. It's kind of no man's land in here. Fabinho, Thiago, Henderson, they kind of just are role players. If anybody's really cheap, go ahead and throw them in. When James Milner gets to pop in here, I always like playing Milner, but I'm kind of a sucker. So don't get tricked by Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. He always screws me up in here.
Yeah, because Alexander-Arnold and Robertson get forward so much as defenders, those 3 midfielders just kind of sit back way more. And so for DraftKings purposes, they're fine for GPPs, I guess, if you just want to try to get a random assist or something. But yeah, it's the back. Those 2 fullbacks and the front 3 are or who you want to play, and Allison too.
And the one guy who can pop in this middle three I kind of like is Curtis Jones. When Curtis Jones gets in there,
very attacking.
He'll get forward a little bit. In terms of the front three, look, there's no more Sadio Mane. There's no more Jota left. Is Jota hurt or did he? No,
he's hurt. He's hurt.
He's hurt. I know he's look, Mane leaving benefits Salah and Jota the most. Firmino, I never get Firmino right, quite honestly. Firmino is the definition of boomer bust. Like Salah and Jota will throw in some crosses, some assists. Firmino's either going to score or do nothing. Like he's just weird like that. But the front three, it's kind of interchangeable. Salah's probably going to score a metric fuck ton of goals this year. It's Liverpool's Liverpool. Yeah. I was actually
Diaz is a fun signing that they brought in, and he's been playing really well in preseason. So if Jota misses and he plays, he's a viable play as well.
Yeah, I want to see what his price is. I haven't looked at the Saturday slate yet because I'm still in the showdown. We'll see how that.
Still not happy about Nunez. It's a different story for a different day, though.
Let's go on. So this team, let's go back to the original order. This is Trey's team. Okay, let's not steal it. Please be a team he likes. Please be a team he likes. Trey, you get Man City.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I feel like I should give this to JNappy. He's gotten some tough teams.
Oh no, you're good. I stole yours. You got it.
Oh, please be Nottingham left. Next, please.
I will be.
please, God.
So I actually have a little bit to say about Man City, just because for the past couple of years they haven't been running with a traditional striker. They've kind of thrown in Sterling, thrown in Foden, who actually did really well. Mixed in Mahrez a little bit. I think Grealish has played a game or two at the number 9, and Bernardo Silva. So they've kind of been throwing, just guy after guy after it. But now they've spent a lot of money on Haaland. Well, not enough money, but a decent amount, less than they should have. And so now they have a traditional striker. I think we have to throw out the book on Manchester City. Like everything that we know about how they play, obviously it's still going to run through Kevin De Bruyne. He's a cash play on either site. He's gonna have the ball probably like
best player in the world.
But I think we're going to have to – there's so many ways that they can do this. And I think a lot of it was kind of underscored in that Community Shield match, where in the first half, they kind of played De Bruyne as a second striker, and they really wanted to try to get vertical. And you're like, oh, okay, so they're really going to push it. But then the second half, they dropped De Bruyne deeper. And, you can debate which way is better, but that also with De Bruyne sitting deeper, that invites the fullbacks up more, which kind of pinches in Grealish, who last year whenever Grealish was on, I just never played him because, he would never come in, more than like 20 yards off the touchline. So
he was just too expensive too. Like he was always so expensive.
Yeah. Wearing a blue shirt is just gonna have to.
Yeah.
But he probably should have been like 5,000, and they were probably making him like 7, and it's way overpriced. But if they decide to drop De Bruyne deeper and just use Haaland in terms of trying to get vertical, those fullbacks might actually push Grealish into better areas. So in which case, that way he can, benefit. But at the same time, if they decide to push De Bruyne higher, it probably sits. João Cancelo is probably the one who's kind of coming in. In terms of DFS, don't play Walker. It's not worth it. It doesn't really do much. He pops up with a assist.
You didn't even talk about Riyad Mahrez yet, which is just bananas because he can go for 25 at any point.
He has a great floor. He has great upside. I just don't know if he's going to start or not. They say he's, kind of start, but I feel like they might like Foden a bit more. So I think that's going to be a bit to watch. They also say that in your second season with City is when you kind of get a big bump in minutes. So Grealish might get a lot of run on that left side, which kind of, although Bernardo Silva might leave, so maybe there's room for Foden in the midfield. I don't know. I'd love to see Foden and Mahrez on the field at the same time. But
this I just got two perfect that we can describe City. Ready? Ashley chimes in with this at the start. To which I told him no, by the way. I don't think so. And then later, TK says this. Like, I don't even know where to go with this. Like, they're good, man. It's all going to come. A lot of it is going to come down to Haaland. How good is he? Can he hold up to Premier League? Ashley made a point in chat. He gets hurt a lot. True. I don't know how he's going to hold up, but I'm excited to see the De Bruyne Haaland combo in the Premier League.
I typically
I think
try to play light on Manchester City slates because it's just been like it's just a lottery of who's going to score. But if Haaland can score goals for them and be more consistent, that they could actually make DFS more fun for me. Slates where they are on the slate, I think they could be a little more enjoyable if the goal scoring is a little more predictable. So I'm looking forward to see how Haaland plays with them, and I like what you said, Trey J, that it's going to be interesting to see how they play with a traditional number 9, a traditional striker, because they haven't had that.
All right, let's look. We're almost an hour, and we haven't got through half the teams yet.
Oh, just one more thing. If Nathan Ake starts, he's going to be super cheap, but he has license to get forward. He's a very offensive center back. So you won't see him just forward on set pieces. You'll see him forward in open play. He pops up with assists left and right. Anytime he shows up, I play him because he's like 3,500. But with added odds to for goal involvement. So.
All right, let's go. This team is JNappy. We're on you now, I believe.
Yep.
We have the other Manchester. Oh, I know.
Still haven't given him a good team.
Oh wow, that's rough. That's rough. He gets to talk. He gets to talk about Alex Telles.
Yeah. Man U should be good, and they just weren't that great last year. I'll be interested to see if Sancho, who they brought in last season as a big signing, just didn't really do a lot. Now he's kind of adjusting to the Premier League and never played there, but he absolutely smashed in Germany before that. So Bruno is a great DFS play always. The problem, though, is that if Ronaldo is there, he just doesn't play the same. And I don't really understand why from a tactical perspective, but for fantasy, he just does not score as well when Ronaldo is there. They just have to play a different style. And so if Ronaldo's starting, I'm less likely to play Bruno. If Bruno is starting by himself with no Ronaldo, he's similar to a Kevin De Bruyne, where his floor is just absolutely massive. He'd be on pins in that situation too, most likely. And so his ceiling is great as well. So I would prefer to see Manchester United without Ronaldo. And their fullbacks just they always seem like they're going to score well, but they just don't really for DraftKings. So for me, I'm interested to see Sancho. I think Rashford could have a really big season if Ronaldo is not there. And then Bruno is kind of if no Ronaldo, then play. Otherwise, I'm probably going to avoid because he's going to be too expensive.
All right. I'm not going to add anything else there. I'm pretty good. Let's see. The team changes a lot whether or not Ronaldo's there.
Yeah.
And I don't think he will be, by the way.
I don't think he will be either. I really hope for them he's not. I think they can be better without him, honestly. I think he really hurts what they can do in terms of pressuring the ball when they're not in possession because he just doesn't press. So I would like to see them move on. We'll see.
All right, let's see who I get. I'm pretty sure it's going to be – yep.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
Don't mess us up.
All right, Ash, here we go. Jump on, have him do this. Look, this team is really interesting. They spend a lot of money. New owner spent a lot of money, and they built a really good team. Trippier and Target on the outside. Joe Willock is a good player. St. Maximin is a good prospect. I think Joelinton is underrated. Everybody loves Bruno in the middle. I actually, for whatever, call me crazy, I like Joelinton. I like Joelinton's style. Like Bruno's. I mean, the whole team. Callum Wilson up front. I know I just listed everybody, but they're solid from top to bottom. There's nowhere on this team that is weak. I don't think they're the best anywhere. Obviously, the top teams, but they're not weak in terms of DFS. Callum Wilson is a really good goal scorer. I think is really good to target against the weaker teams. Trippier is the fullback I'm going to target more, especially if he ends up on sets. Like I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to. Nick Pope is a great get for keeper for them, and Nick Pope is in heaven, not having to fucking goalkeep for Burnley anymore. We all know how I feel about Burnley. So he's got to be so happy, and he would put up scores for Burnley. Now he's got a team in front of him. Nick Pope fan club right here. Look, most interesting guys. It's gonna be what's interesting about this team. What I'm kind of getting at is Trippier, Wilson, and then who's ever cheap. I think they're going to fluctuate throughout the year based on who's recent form affects pricing. Is Almiron or St. Maximin cheaper? Is Willock or Joelinton cheaper? And that's probably where I'm going to go. Joelinton, I think, has got multiple goal upside. He is my sleeper play on this team, and all of this, by the way, completely changes if Christian Eriksen comes here, because then who's going to lose their spot? God, who would lose their spot in that situation? Almiron? And you go to like a 4-4. I don't know. I haven't thought about it enough. Hey Ash, in chat, let me know if Eriksen comes. What's the formation going to be? I would think some type of. I would imagine you drop off Almiron and figure out how you're going to organize things. That's my gut instinct.
You could also drop one of those outside midfielders and run like a 4-2-3-1 as well with Eriksen in the middle, Callum Wilson up top. But yeah, it gets interesting. If
Madison. I said Eriksen. I meant Madison. I'm sorry. I was thinking about Christian Eriksen earlier. Apologies. I meant Madison. Yes. So a good and on FanDuel, honestly, Fabian Schär and Botman. This team is it's solid. It's not a team you're going to go all in on and put 60-70% of a guy. But I'll mix these guys in pretty much any slate. They're going to be Trippier in a lot of games.
He's cheap enough. Maybe Trippier.
If he's cheap enough and there's nobody else, no other fullbacks in the slate.
He can score from anywhere. It takes tons of sets. Yeah, unless Madison comes in, then yeah, you got to worry about him losing some of those. But I like Trippier.
Ash says it'll be Willock who drops, and I guess you could play it straight. I thought they liked him a little more, but makes sense. Unless anybody's got anything else to add, we're gonna move on to Trey's next team, which is
Nottingham Forest.
They're so good. By the way, they are plus 150. So Bournemouth is minus 250 to get relegated. The next two teams are Nottingham Forest and Fulham. They're both still plus money, plus 125.
I actually think Nottingham Forest actually stays up. I know they qualified through the playoff. But typically over the years, the team that qualifies to the playoff actually performs fairly well in the Premier League relative to the other promoted teams. But Nottingham Forest has actually spent a lot in the over the summer.
Yeah, Jesse Lingard right there to prove it.
Yep, Lingard is going to be key in the middle. They got Nico Williams from Liverpool over there on the right wing back. And they got Dean Henderson between the sticks. So they're actually going to be they're not going to be like DFS gold, but they are going to be some value pieces at times. They should play well at home.
Does anybody know, is Dean Henderson on loan or does he sign at Nottingham, or did Manchester United loan him out? Anybody know for sure?
Not sure,
actually.
Because I really think Henderson needs to be the next guy at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
I've been saying that for years. He is on loan, right? Okay. Yeah, this is a good move for everybody then.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm excited to see Nico Williams get some more playing time.
Yeah. I think it was not last year, the year before, he got some run. And he
Look at that. Look at Ash. Ash lives in England, by the way. That's why we trust him.
Johnson is he's going to be your key man up top for goals. He's also on pens, but he also tracks back and works defensively too. So he's going to be all over the place. Probably looking at Awani on maybe for counters. But Johnson's going to be your main man. But yeah, this team's going to basically play to the forwards. And you probably can get some good work on FanDuel from their center backs. They should play pretty tough. And I don't hate them for some cleans at some choice times. So
yeah, especially with a goalkeeper like Henderson. I'm with you. At home to a bottom half club, they could keep some clean sheets.
I like Nico Williams. I think he's going to be the interesting pivot play in here. All right. Let's see. After Trey is JNappy gets. God.
Wolf.
Jesus.
I mean, the
Woof.
good thing about
Oops, sorry.
Southampton is, even though they're not a great team, they do have an interesting interesting DFS piece, especially on DraftKings. I mean, James Ward-Prowse is just a floor machine. He's a great DraftKings scorer, and he's typically not as
50%
expensive.
every slate. He's
really
always
high
50% on.
And it's because he's not as expensive as some of the guys with similar roles to him that are on better teams, right? Like, he has a similar role as Kevin De Bruyne, but Kevin De Bruyne is obviously much better, much more dynamic. He's a better overall player. But in terms of a DraftKings play, James Ward-Prowse is really, 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 really solid. So their forwards kind of rotate, and you can never really figure them out. I really want to see Shea Adams take a step forward and have a better season this year. I think they're going to need him if they want to stay out of the relegation battle.
I like Walcott when he's up there.
Yeah, yeah, from a DFS perspective, it's James Ward-Prowse and nobody else, basically.
Can we get a petition going to save JWP from Southampton? Just like,
oh my God, I'm looking at this a little closer. What is Southampton to get relegated? Ben Derrick is fine too, but I don't even know who that goalkeeper is. Anybody know who that is?
No,
I've never heard of him.
I saw him, pop up in the preseason, and I just moved on.
Oh my God!
Actually, I like Salisu on FanDuel. Salisu, he's my favorite Southampton defender for FanDuel. I mean, he just kind of fills up the stat sheet a little bit. I mean, you'll pay for him. He's going to be like $13, but he's kind of worth it.
Yeah, Southampton's the 5th most likely team to get relegated behind the 3 newbies, Leeds, and then Southampton. I
like Leeds over Southampton to stay up.
Yeah, same.
That's
Leeds is going to score a lot of goals. Southampton is not. I just don't see who's scoring for them, and their defense is not super solid either. So
yeah, you're right. TK. He could probably hit a cross. I think a straight cross. I think he's just too good of a server of the ball. Yeah, but he's got 2 Armstrongs and an Aribo jumping at the ball. He might have us 3 trying to put it away.
So Stuart Armstrong will actually. I play him quite a bit. He can pop up with some goals. He's probably, after Shea Adams, he's probably the next best goal scorer. But
he's usually pretty cheap too. You can play him in a GPP on some slates in the right matchup. I agree.
You're going to get him wrong a lot of times, but I mean, when you get him right, he's going to have like 1% ownership.
Right, really.
When he trips and puts the ball in the goal. All right, I'm going to move on here. Is this me next?
Yep.
Fifth order. Nice.
Spurs.
Nice. I started off real bad, but I get rewarded for Bournemouth here, having to do Bournemouth. And I started getting this team wrong at the end of last year because I cannot figure out Kulusevski. I just can't figure out what he brings to this team. I was just slamming Son in, and I was happy. Mixing in Kane a little, and always at the end of last year, Kulusevski starts scoring everything. I will say this team for me is really easy DFS. They're going to be a top team, playing a bunch. Lloris is good, and then it's this top 3, figure it out. Son the highest floor, although Kulusevski came on at the end of last year. I want to see how that progresses, but I will say, to me, Kane's your straight GPP guy. Son is your hybrid guy. To me, Kulusevski is Son light, pretty similar, but not as good typically. And Emerson is a guy I'll mix in if it's a fullback light slate. Not a ton. I'm not really a fan of Ryan Sessegnon, but he's burned me a couple times too. To me he's the least likely of the 2, and it's a team that you want to play their fullbacks because they're favored and they play the 3-4-3, and it never seems to work out. So for the most part, Tottenham is a front 3 loaded team for DFS.
Yeah, and Kane and Son just combine so often on their goals. They're like the opposite of Manchester United, where goals and assists can come from anywhere. Like with Spurs, if someone is scoring or assisting, there's like an 80% chance Kane or Son is involved, and a lot of times it's both of them.
I would say more than that. I should keep track. I bet you it's probably closer to 90 that one of the 2 of them is involved. Like it's crazy.
So they're pretty easy to predict from a DFS perspective, which is nice. That they make good cash plays, especially Son.
All right, Trey gets West Ham.
JNappy, do you want West Ham so you just have a semi-decent team out of all of these?
No, you got it.
Or
You
I'll
got
let you
it.
pick.
I
Or you
got
can have
Wolves.
Wolves.
I'm fine with Wolves.
Okay. So West Ham, they are they're actually like they've come on in the last few years.
Sorry, I'm already annoyed. You want to know why I'm annoyed before you get into your breakdown? Look at the lineup and what do you think would annoy me in here? So I'm already just no.
Cresswell as a center back?
Yeah, what the fuck are we doing? like, because it's going to be priced at 6,200. And is he still going to take sets? There was a game last year where he took sets as a center back. I had the lineup, and he actually played center back, and then he took all the sets and still scored 14 points. It was livid.
That's gross.
Sorry, go ahead.
For me, it's Bowen. It starts with Bowen. Antonio's pretty great. I mean, they just haven't had a striker. They kind of turned him in because a few years ago he was running down the right wing, and it was great pace on the wing. But now he's kind of turned into their number 9, and he's done great when he's healthy. But they did just get another striker from Serie A. Got Scamacca, who should, I would think that either they play. Well, see, I'd want to get them both on the pitch. I think they just have nothing to lose at that point, but I know that they don't really have another striker behind Antonio and Scamacca. So, yeah, I mean, they've got other guys in the midfield that are going to come in for finals and mess things up. Benrahma, Lanzini, Noble's going to come in, as like a defensive sub at times. Maybe play the center attacking mid in a 4-2-3-1 if they want to switch to that. The sneaky guy on this team is Thomas Tsuchek. No one really ever wants to play defensive mids. And even though he's a defensive mid, he's going to play just as high as Antonio, sometimes even further. And you're not going to know when it's going to happen, but he's going to do it. Most of the time it happens when they're playing at home, but he's just
he's got this weird ability to score from corner kicks. He's so good on set pieces where he just finds the ball, and you're like, I don't even know what happens.
He's got a great big guy either. Like he's a smaller guy, and yeah, he just finds the ball and puts it in the back of the net. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm surprised Zuma's still there. Actually, I would have thought that they kind of got rid of him. But Fabianski's an amazing goalie. He's actually one of my favorite keepers in the Premier League. I think he's just an excellent shot stopper. And he's one who's going to rack up saves. West Ham's not a defense that can really keep clean sheets, but he can kind of.
It's not good back here.
Nope. A lot of pressure on Tsuchek and Rice to kind of protect that back line. I remember when I first started.
Declan Rice is going to have 20 to 25 yellow cards this year. That's like he's going to get booked a lot.
Is that before the World Cup?
Maybe. He's going to get booked a lot. How many times can you get yellow card suspended in one season? Like how often can you do that?
Oh, if you get 5, you get suspended for a game or
yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
The free yellow accumulation. He might have a few of those.
It's going to be a lot.
I'll have to sit down and do that math.
All right.
Yeah, Bowen Antonio. Occasionally, you can play Soufal if he's playing on the wing. I actually love him a lot more than as the right back. But he loves to create. He can disappear at times during the season, though, so we have to keep an eye on when he's running hot and when he's not. That's all I got.
All right, Wolves. We're on Wolves.
Wolves are kind of difficult to figure out for me. Jimenez is out, and he's their main goal scorer, even though he had a terrible brain or skull fracture 2 seasons ago, came back last year. And
grossest thing I've ever seen, by the way.
It's kind of, it was terrible. And he was just never the same, understandably, like when you have an injury that bad. So they struggle to score, so they're just not that fun to play from in DFS, especially on DraftKings, because they're just hard to predict. Their sets are inconsistent. Neto, if he's healthy, will be their main set piece taker, and so he's kind of the one floor guy. Their fullbacks, I never play Johnny, but Aït-Nouri actually gets forward quite a bit, and he can mix in on sets with Neto. So it's pretty much those two guys for me. Sometimes you'll get a random goal from Podence or Jimenez if he plays, but Aït-Nouri and Neto are by far my favorite plays on this. You can play their defense some. Jose Sa is a really solid goalkeeper, and they defend really well. They're just not going to score a lot of goals.
I feel like we missed somebody. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Did we get all the teams?
I think so.
Yeah.
Did we? I feel like.
Ruben Neves is deadly from distance too. So
I know where they are, T. That's messed up.
wait,
I
did
know
you guys
where
know
they
that
are.
Cucho Hernandez is playing in the MLS right now?
Yeah.
I
And
did
he's
not know
crushing
that.
too. It's a super interesting signing. Columbus.
I totally missed that.
All right, let's have a little bit of fun here before we get out. I'm gonna pull up English Premier League. How many spots does the Premier League get this year in Champions League and
4.
It's four, and then is it
2 Europa,
is it 2 Europa this year?
and then
Yeah.
1 Europa Conference, I think.
I'm not
which
gonna
is
count
the
that.
new competition that they started.
I'm not even gonna count that. So I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah,
pull
that's gonna be a tough one because it's West Ham is in the Europa Conference and they were in Europa League last year. So do they care about the conference or not?
Yeah.
They do not. All right, so I'm gonna pull up the table here. Oh, all right. I don't know how easily you guys can see that. It's a little zoomed out. I wanted to pull up a full table with everybody. Probably can't even read that. No, that's small. We kind of know. So let's just do it this way. 14. Who makes the Champions League? Your top 4 finishers. I just sprung that on you guys. I'll give you my
Not
4.
City.
I think.
Not City.
Not City.
Yeah, get out of here. All right. Champions League spots for the Premier League. It'll be Liverpool. It'll be Manchester City. It will be who do I want to go as a third place team? I hate to do it. It's probably Chelsea. And then I think Chelsea will make it up there. And then I'm going to go – I can't do Man United. I don't think they're going to be that good. Probably Arsenal. And then I'm going to go – and then those are my 4. And then I think Man United's going to have a real bad year. I don't think they're going to make it even into – and I'm going to go Tottenham, and I'm going to go Newcastle as my 5-6 to make the Europa League. And I think Man United is going to finish 7th and be in the Euro in the conference. That's my top 7. Oh, please, God, let that happen.
I think Liverpool wins it this year. They got so close last year, and City reloaded, but they always do. But I think Liverpool is just as good. I don't see City as overwhelming favorites, but I think it's those two in the top tier for sure. So I go Liverpool, City, and I don't think, even as a Chelsea fan, I just don't think Chelsea did enough this summer to stick around in the top 4. I think it'll be – I actually think Man United can have a comeback year, especially if Ronaldo is not there. So I'll put Man U and Arsenal as the last 2 in the Champions League.
Who's going to score the goals for Man U, though?
Rashford, Bruno.
Martial.
I don't –
That's it.
Rashford – such a head case. The problem with Rashford, you know what? You could be – Rashford strikes me as the very hot, cold type player. He could get hot and score 10 goals in 4 games.
Yeah.
And he can get cold and not score for 10 weeks. Like,
I just think they have too much talent. And I like Ten Hag, too, who came in as a new manager. So
who's your 5-6?
I'll probably go Chelsea, Newcastle. That's 5-6.
Newcastle. You didn't have Tottenham, right? Tottenham's going to miss it?
7 probably Spurs. Yeah.
Woo!
Oh, wow.
We all picked Newcastle. Is Ash getting to us?
They just look good, man.
They
I
do.
don't know.
Watch them finish 13th.
I think he's on their payroll. He's in their marketing department. I've got City 1. I think City figures it out with Haaland. I actually like him to have a really good season, and I do think they win. I don't think that you can bet them to win. I think the value is on Liverpool if you're going to put money on them, but I think that City get it done in the end. But at minus, like, I think they're last I heard they were like minus 500 and like
they're heavy.
Or no,
favorites.
something like no. Sorry,
I want to wait for one of these teams to fall 6 points behind the other, and look at the live odds and bet it then.
Yeah, that's not
whoever falls 6 points behind. I'm gonna bet them.
Yeah. I think it's a toss-up. I don't think they're clear favorites, so I'm with you.
No, it's tight, and I think that Liverpool really put them on notice in the Community Shield.
Mm-hmm.
So you could go either way.
Right. That's your 1-2. Give us your 3-4. Who's else making Champions League? I assume you're going to say Arsenal.
I have Tottenham 3.
You mean Trey? Woo.
So I actually I've done this exercise before, and I have them in ranges. I think that they go 3, but I think that that Tottenham has the ability to go cold at times. And if so, if they start, because the way,
or if Harry Kane gets hurt, they're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
The congested fixtures, the World Cup.
I'm a little worried for Kane with just the congested fixtures leading into the World Cup, and then you have they come back from the World Cup to go into the festive season. There's a lot of games right there. Like I just think it's a recipe for disaster. And that's another reason why I just don't think, because I've heard some people talk about Tottenham being able to win the league, possibly, or, give them a run, on some other podcasts and stuff like that. But I just think that their team isn't deep enough for the fixtures this year. If it was a regular Premier League year, then maybe. But I just don't think they're deep enough to handle, because they're trying to get the group stages of the Champions League out of the way before World Cup. And, I'm sure there's some other games that makes it. Yeah. So it's a bit much for a team that's so reliant on 2 people.
If the U.S. just knocks out England in the group stages of the World Cup, then maybe he'll have some better legs for the festive fixtures.
Yeah.
That's going to be rough in chat. That's going to be a thing. All right. That's my 3. Arsenal's got to be 4.
I've got Arsenal 4. I do have Arsenal 4.
It's just not, we don't going to break it down anymore. Who's going to Europa?
Europa, I've got Chelsea 5 and Newcastle 6.
Okay. So your 7 then is probably who'd you leave out?
You got Man U all the way out.
No, it's probably going to Man U, but I think it's going to be another battle between.
I want them in that lowest league of Europe. That'd be so fun. All right, last thing before people bounce. 3 teams. Let's not even give full reasons. Give 3 teams who are going to get relegated. Who goes to the championship next year without a lot of reasoning or explanation behind it. You should have heard it earlier. Clearly, Bournemouth for me is on that list. And then I'm going to go. I'm going to go Southampton. I think they're that bad. I kind of like Brentford just enough. I kind of like Fulham just enough. I think only one team is good from. So I think Bournemouth, Southampton, and what other existing team is going to shit their pants? And I want to be a dick and say Leicester. They really, but they can't. That can't happen, can it? Can that really happen? I'm gonna go back.
I think it's in the realm of possibility.
Yeah,
I'm gonna change my mind. It's there, but I'll go back. I'll say Nottingham, Brentford, Southampton, Nottingham. Go down.
I'll go Bournemouth, Everton, and Fulham.
Everton.
I'm Bournemouth, Southampton, and Everton.
Yeah, and Everton was in the mix for me too. I want to see if anybody listening, watching later, message me somewhere, comment on this video. Let me know if I can bet Bournemouth to finish dead last. I know relegated is minus 250, but can I bet Bournemouth finishes last?
I think there is a book that does do that where you can bet it, but I don't know if it's a US market.
Yeah,
I want to find that. Ash, by the way, anybody in chat, Forest, Bournemouth, Everton. We're all kind of in the same.
Forest.
I don't think they're quite there.
They did change a lot on their team, which is tough thing to do
Right.
going to a new league.
I think they're going to be in the race. I think that race at the end of the year is good. I think they'll be the 18th spot race.
Yeah, that's going to come down to the last week.
Yep. All right, guys, this was fun season as always. Anybody out there, make sure you become a DFS Army VIP, dfsarmy.com. Join us in the soccer Discord. Any final advice for the season before we get out of here? No? Anybody?
Have fun with it and come play Champions League too.
Oh,
Champions
yes.
League is a lot of fun.
If
and
you
World
want,
Cup.
We'll cover those as well. So
yes. We'll cover World Cup. World Cup everybody's into. Champions League, that's a great point. I think it's the most underrated. I think it's the best DFS sweat.
it's awesome.
It's
Two
every game.
hours of
Two
pure
hours.
madness.
Yeah.
It's a
2
ton of
hours,
goals.
constant.
Goals, scoring, star players, big tournaments. It's the best. It really, Champions League is the best.
Yeah, when you have 6 matches going on at once and the over/under for all matches is like 24 goals. Yeah, this is madness.
It's good. All right, guys. Good luck in those contests. Join us in the DFS Army Soccer Discord. Catch you next time.
Cheers.
Later, guys.